The iPad hits the armrest with a crack that cuts through the cabin's low hum. Coffee floods the aisle in a dark wave, the smell of burnt Arabica mixing with recycled air. Row 12 freezes. Flight simulator games. Richard Blackwood's voice carries like a judge reading a sentence. 6'2" in a Tom Ford suit, he towers over seat 12C, holding Keisha Washington's tablet high enough for everyone in economy to witness his verdict. X-plane severe icing recovery scenarios. He reads aloud, mocking each word. Exercise 47 engine flameout during freezing rain, single pilot recovery. This is adorable. You actually think studying games makes you understand aviation. Keisha doesn't look up. Her hands move carefully, salvaging the laptop from the spreading puddle Coffee Richard's elbow just knocked over, though he'll never admit it. The brown stain blooms across her gray Northwestern hoodie like a wound. She says nothing. Doesn't need to. Her silence is a skill learned over 32 years of being underestimated. Look at this, everyone. Jennifer Hartley leans across the aisle from 12A iPhone recording. Mid-40s, CFO energy manicured nails tapping the screen. The flight attendant thinks she's studying pilot manuals. Next, she'll tell us she can land a 757. Marcus Chen chuckles from 12D, adjusting wire-rimmed glasses. Dunning-Kruger effect in real time. Probably downloaded Pilot Basics from the App Store. Classic. The woman in 11C, Helen Morris, schoolteacher kind face, glances back, conflicted. Should she say something? But Richard Blackwood is a name you see in Forbes. People like him don't get corrected by people like her. She looks away. Keisha folds the tablet into her military surplus backpack. The motion is practiced economical. Her left shoulder hitches slightly, barely visible, but there. She doesn't react to the coffee soaking through her clothes. Doesn't acknowledge the phones recording her humiliation. She closes her eyes. 4 counts in, 7 hold, 8 out. I mean, really. David Winters straightens his Hermes tie from 11D voice, dripping with lawyer precision. Can't even lift her bag without struggling. What's someone like that doing in this cabin, the cabin? As if economy class requires credentials. As if her faded jeans and worn sneakers disqualify her from breathing the same air. 30 minutes from now, when ice covers the wings like a shroud and the captain's voice goes silent, nobody will be laughing. 207 lives, 1 shot at survival, and she's it. But right now, in the judgment of Row 12, Keisha Washington is just the cleaning lady playing pilot on a phone game. Right now, she's nobody. They have no idea who she is. They have no idea what's coming. Kesha pulls the hood up over her hair, brown with subtle golden highlights that catch the overhead lights tied back in a functional ponytail. The Northwestern University logo on her chest is faded, cracked from too many wash cycles. Her jeans are clean but worn thin at the knees. Her sneakers. New Balance Practical have seen better years. She looks like a college student flying standby, or airport staff deadheading home after a double shift, or someone who bought the cheapest ticket and wore whatever was clean. She doesn't look like someone who's flown through Arctic storms at 200 feet, wrestling a 100-ton aircraft through conditions that would ground most pilots. She doesn't look like Captain Kesha Washington callsign Frost. And that's exactly the problem. The backpack she shoves under 12B is military surplus olive drab canvas paracord zipper pulls, name tape removed, but the outline still visible in the fabric. Inside the tablet, Richard mocked a dog-eared No AA Aviation Weather Services manual protein bars and a bottle of ibuprofen she takes every 4 hours for the shoulder. The shoulder. When she lifts the pack to the overhead bin, her left arm moves stiffly. Not dramatically, she's trained to hide it, but the hitch is there. The rotation isn't smooth. David Winters notices from 11D, nudges Marcus Chen. Can't even lift a bag properly. What's she doing in this cabin? Keisha settles into 12C, middle seat, the worst seat on any plane. Both 12B and 12D are empty, late booking, sparse load. She's alone in her row, which should feel like luck, but instead feels like isolation. Around her, the cabin fills with the sounds of boarding rolling luggage, beeping seatbelt signs, flight attendants' practiced greetings. Welcome aboard. May I see your boarding pass? Your seat is just back there on the right. Paige Scott, lead flight attendant, passes row 12 with the quick professional scan of someone who's worked this route 1,000 times. She notices Keisha's reading material, the NOAA manual open to Chapter 7 icing conditions, but doesn't comment. Probably a weather enthusiast, or maybe studying for some aviation job. Either way, not her business. The Boeing 757 rocks gently as a baggage loader connects below. Most passengers don't feel it. Kesha does. Her feet automatically shift to a wider stance against the seat rails, her weight centered over the aircraft's center of gravity. Her hands rest on the armrests without gripping loose ready. It's muscle memory, the kind that doesn't fade even after 4 months of not flying. When the engines spool up for taxi, she closes her eyes and listens. The N1 turbine whine hits a specific frequency, 72% power, normal for taxi thrust. Her right hand taps a rhythm on her thigh, 4 beats pause, 2 beats. The pattern she used to tap on the C-130's yoke when running through pre-flight flows. Helen Morris in 11C glances back curious. The woman in the hoodie isn't gripping the armrests like a nervous flyer. She's sitting like someone who's done this 10,000 times, like someone who knows exactly what every sound means, like someone who belongs in a cockpit, not a middle seat. But Helen doesn't say anything. Neither does anyone else. The plane turns onto the taxiway, and Keisha's breathing stays steady. 4 counts in, 7 hold, 8 out. The breathing pattern every military pilot learns. The one that keeps you conscious at 9 Gs. The one that keeps you calm when everything goes wrong. The cabin fills quickly. 207 passengers, mostly business travelers, escaping Atlanta's humidity for Minneapolis meetings. A few families. A handful of college students heading home. The energy is typical for a Thursday evening flight, tired, transactional, everyone absorbed in phones and laptops. Captain John Mitchell's voice crackles through the PA, warm and practiced. Good evening, folks. This is Captain Mitchell. We've got about a 2-hour, 40-minute flight to Minneapolis tonight. Weather's showing some mixed precipitation around Chicago. Nothing unusual for this time of year. We'll probably get a little chop climbing through the cloud layers, but nothing to worry about. Sit back, relax, and we'll have you on the ground right on schedule. Mixed precipitation. Keisha's eyes flicked to the window. She saw the meter report on her phone during the boarding freezing rain forecast, between 8 and 12,000 feet. Standard for Great Lakes springtime. Should be routine. Should be. The first-class curtain parts. Richard Blackwood emerges, phone pressed to his ear voice, carrying through the cabin. I don't care what the market's doing, close the deal before Friday, or we lose the window. He's pacing, one hand gesturing emphatically, the kind of man who treats airplanes like mobile offices. His eyes scan the cabin as he walks, cataloging who belongs and who doesn't. They land on Keisha in 12C, the worn hoodie, the faded jeans, the military backpack shoved under the seat. His lip curls slightly, not quite disgust, but close. Judgment rendered in a glance. He stops beside her row. You know, most people in this cabin are professionals, people with careers, responsibilities. His voice is just loud enough for Helen Morris and the nearby rows to hear. It's refreshing to see someone who can just disconnect, play games. Must be nice not having real stakes in life. Keisha's hands remain still in her lap. She doesn't look up, doesn't acknowledge him. Her breathing stays steady. Richard lingers, waiting for a reaction. When none comes, he shakes his head and returns to first class. From 12A, Jennifer Hartley leans over, voice saccharine. Don't mind Richard. He's just stressed about the acquisition. $800 million deal closing tomorrow. You probably can't imagine that kind of pressure. Marcus Chen chimes in from across the aisle. These flights are basically his office. He gets territorial about the space. Nothing personal. Everything about it is personal. But Keisha learned a long time ago that engaging only makes it worse. Silent protagonist. Let them underestimate you. It's safer that way. The 757 pushes back from the gate with a gentle lurch. The APU whine builds as the engines spool. Keisha's eyes close. She's counting. Row 12C to the nearest exit. Row 18 overwing. 6 rows. 12 steps at standard seat pitch. The emergency lighting strips along the floor pulse softly marking the path. Her fingers trace the pattern on the armrest, memorizing. She's done this on every flight for 10 years. Map the exits. Count the steps. Know exactly where you are in the dark. Breadcrumb number 2, but nobody notices. The plane turns onto the taxiway. Through the window, Atlanta's lights blur past. The engines build to takeoff power, and Keisha's body automatically braces feet, flat core, engaged head back against the headrest. Not from fear, from training. The nose lifts. They're airborne. And then passing through 8,000 feet, the first turbulence hits. It's light, just a few bumps, the wings flexing slightly as they punch through a cloud layer. Most passengers barely notice. A few look up from their devices mildly curious. Keisha doesn't flinch. Her breathing never changes. 4 in, 7 hold, 8 out. The pattern that's kept her alive through worse than this. Helen Morris glances back again. There's something off about the woman in 12C. She's too calm, too controlled. Like turbulence is just expected. Like she's done this before. A lot. The turbulence increases as they climb through 12,000 feet. Nothing dangerous, just the typical spring weather over the Midwest, warm air meeting cold the atmosphere, sorting itself out. The seatbelt sign stays on. Keisha pulls out her notepad. It's small, spiral-bound, the kind you'd buy at a drugstore. But what she draws isn't casual. Her hand moves with surgical precision, a wing cross-section perfectly scaled. She labels the parts without hesitation. Leading edge, upper surface, pressure differential. Arrows indicating airflow notes about laminar separation stall characteristics at different angles of attack. It's not a drawing. It's a technical diagram, the kind you'd see in an aerospace engineering textbook. Marcus Chen leans over from 12D curious despite himself. What is that? Keisha doesn't look up. Notes. About what? Airflow. He laughs, but it's uncertain now. The drawing is too detailed, too accurate. You learn that from your game. She closes the notepad. Doesn't answer. The turbulence bumps harder. A few passengers gasp. Keisha reaches for her watch, not a smartwatch, not a fitness tracker, an analog pilot's watch with a rotating UTC bezel. The kind you can't buy at Best Buy. The kind military aviators wear because digital fails at altitude. She checks the time, does a mental calculation, and writes in her notepad 1847Z, FL240, OAT, 18 degree C, Zulu time, flight level notation, outside air temperature in Celsius. Nobody writes like that unless they're trained. The girl in 13B, maybe 9 years old, traveling with her mother, leans forward curious. Why is the plane shaking? Kesha's voice is soft, kind. Convective activity at flight level. It's normal. Just bumpy air. The mother smiles reassured. But Marcus Chen isn't smiling. Flight level. She said flight level, not altitude. That's pilot terminology. Specific. Technical. He's about to say something when the engine pitch changes. It's subtle. Most people wouldn't notice. The whine of the turbines drops maybe 0.5%, the N1 thrust reducing slightly as the autopilot adjusts for the turbulence. Keisha's head snaps up before the sound fully registers. Her eyes go to the window, tracking, calculating. 3 seconds later, Captain Mitchell's voice, "Flight attendants, please take your seats. We're getting some reports of moderate chop ahead." Keisha heard it before the announcement, before the pilots probably decided to make the call. In 14A, Harold Peterson sets down his newspaper. He's 67 weathered hands scarred from decades around aircraft, retired master sergeant with 30 years in the 39th Airlift Squadron. He flew C-130s through desert storms and Arctic ice. He knows what training looks like, and the woman in 12C moves like someone who's been trained. The way she positioned herself during takeoff, the way she's tracking the engine sounds, the way her hand went to that notepad, the moment turbulence started documenting conditions, like she's filing a post-flight report. Harold leans forward slightly watching. The plane drops suddenly just 50 feet, but enough to lift unsecured items into the air. A pen floats. Someone's phone slides off a tray table. Most passengers grip their armrests white-knuckled. Keisha's hands rest loosely on her thighs. Her breathing never changes. Harold Peterson has seen that response exactly once before in pilots so experienced that turbulence becomes background noise, the ones who've flown through worse and lived. He's about to lean forward and ask her something when the PA chimes again. "Folks, this is First Officer Evan Brooks. We're going to keep that seatbelt sign on for a bit. Weather's a little more active than forecast. Nothing to worry about, just going to be a bumpy ride for the next 20 minutes or so." Evan's voice is young, professional, but young. Maybe late 20s. Kesha's eyes close. She's listening to something the passengers can't hear. The engine harmonics, the slight yaw in the airframe, the way the aircraft is compensating for wind shear. She's reading the plane like a language, and Harold Peterson is starting to realize she might be fluent. They've been airborne 30 minutes when Captain Mitchell's voice returns, and this time there's something different in the tone. Still professional, still calm, but with an edge that makes experienced travelers sit up straighter. "Folks, we're picking up some ice on the wings. Nothing to worry about, we're cycling the de-ice boots standard procedure. Just going to be a little longer in this weather than anticipated." Ice. The word ripples through the cabin like a cold draft. People look out windows. Those with wing views see it a white rime building along the leading edge, thick and uneven, growing faster than it should. In 9C, a passenger raises his phone and snaps a photo, posts it to Twitter with shaking hands, ice on the wings. Is this normal? Jennifer Hartley sees the post, retweets it with her own commentary, "Flying through an ice storm," because some pilot thought it was fine. "This is why I usually take private jets. Commercial aviation is a joke." She holds up her phone, filming the wing. "Look at this. Look at how much ice. We're basically flying a popsicle right now." The video goes live on Instagram. Comments flood in within seconds. Richard Blackwood unbuckles standing. "This is unacceptable." His voice cuts through the murmurs. "Paige, I need to speak with the captain. Now." Paige Scott appears from the forward galley, practice smile already strained. "Sir, please return to your seat. The seatbelt sign. I have a merger closing in 14 hours. $800 million. I cannot be delayed, and I certainly cannot be—" He stops himself before saying the word. "Endangered." But everyone hears it anyway. "Get me the captain. I need to know what the plan is." "Captain Mitchell is managing the situation, sir. I assure you, I didn't ask for assurance. I asked for the captain." Paige's smile hardens. Federal regulations require passengers to remain seated when the seatbelt sign is illuminated. "Please sit down, Mr. Blackwood." Richard stares at her for a long moment, then complies. But his expression promises this conversation isn't over. In 12C, Keisha watches the wing through the window. Her eyes track the ice buildup with clinical precision. It's accumulating in an irregular pattern, thicker near the leading edge, but with gaps. The de-ice boots are cycling. She can see the rubber bladders inflating and deflating, shedding chunks of ice. But the cycle is too slow. She leans closer to the window, breath fogging the plastic. The boot sequence should be 8 seconds inflation, 12 seconds deflation. She counts. 12 seconds inflation. 20 seconds deflation. That's not standard. That's a malfunction or a manual override to conserve pneumatic pressure. Her lips move barely audible. Boot cycles too slow. Freezing level dropped faster than no AA forecast. Harold Peterson, 2 rows back, hears her. His newspaper lowers completely now. The plane shudders. Not turbulence this time, but something else. A vibration that pulses through the airframe the way a car feels when a tire is unbalanced. Ice shedding asymmetrically. Marcus Chen looks up from his laptop, finally unsettled. What was that? David Winter's general counsel always has an answer. Probably just turbulence. Modern aircraft have computers for everything. Flight control systems, anti-ice autopilot. It's all automated. The pilots are basically along for the ride. He says it loudly enough for the surrounding rows to hear. Reassurance through authority. Never mind that he's never flown anything in his life. That's right, Marcus echoes, eager to believe. These planes practically fly themselves. I read an article most commercial aviation is automated. Pilots barely touch the controls anymore. Keisha's jaw tightens. Her fingers curl into fists, then deliberately relax. Silent protagonist. Let them be wrong. It's safer. But Harold Peterson leans forward, voice low enough that only Kesha hears. Ma'am, I flew C-130s for 30 years. Heard that sound before ice asymmetry causing roll damping issues. That's not turbulence. Kesha turns slightly, meets his eyes. For a moment, there's recognition. One pilot to another. Then she looks away. I wouldn't know. Wouldn't you? The turbulence hits harder now. The plane drops, climbs banks slightly left. Overhead bins rattle. Someone's laptop slides off a tray table and crashes into the aisle. A child starts crying. And through it all, Keisha sits perfectly still, hands loose on the armrest, breathing steady. 4 in, 7 hold, 8 out. The rhythm that's kept her alive through conditions far worse than this. But nobody knows that yet. Nobody knows who she is. In 20 minutes, that will change. In 20 minutes, the captain will stop talking. And everyone will wish they'd listened to the woman in the hoodie. The intercom chimes 3 short tones that experienced travelers recognize as unusual. Not the standard PA announcement, something else. Captain Mitchell's voice cuts through, tight and controlled. Flight attendants to the cockpit, now. The words hang in the cabin like smoke. Now. Not when convenient. Not at your earliest opportunity. Now. Paige Scott's face drains of color. She unbuckles from her jump seat and moves forward fast, but not running. Never run, that causes panic. She disappears through the cockpit door. Seconds tick by. 10, 20, 30. The cabin murmurs start. What's happening? Is something wrong? Why did they call her up there? Richard Blackwood stands again, ignoring the seatbelt sign. This is exactly what I was worried about. Incompetence. Jennifer, are you getting this? Jennifer Hartley raises her phone, filming. I'm documenting everything. If we survive this, there's going to be hell to pay. The cockpit door opens. But it's not Captain Mitchell who appears. First Officer Evan Brooks steps into the cabin, and his youth becomes painfully obvious. 28 years old, clean-shaven, eyes wide with something that looks too much like fear. He picks up the handset, his hand shaking slightly. Ladies and gentlemen, this is First Officer Brooks. Captain Mitchell is experiencing a medical issue. I want to assure you that I am fully qualified to continue this flight. I have 2,000 hours of experience and... His voice cracks, just slightly, but everyone hears it. And we are proceeding normally to our destination. Please remain calm and seated. The cabin explodes. Medical issue, someone shouts. What does that mean? Is the captain dying? Oh my God, we're going to crash. A woman 3 rows up starts hyperventilating. A child wails. Someone is praying loudly in Spanish. Keisha's eyes close. Her hands grip the armrests, not from fear, but from restraint. Every instinct screams at her to move, to act, to help. But she knows what happens when unauthorized people approach cockpits. She knows about air marshals, about federal charges, about how quickly help becomes threat in the eyes of frightened crew. So she stays seated, breathing. 4 in, 7 hold, 8 out. The plane banks suddenly 10 degrees, maybe 15. Not a normal course correction. The kind of movement that happens when someone overcorrects when hands are uncertain on the yoke. Harold Peterson's voice carries from 14A, decades of command authority cutting through the panic. Everyone calm down. The first officer is qualified. Let him do his job. But his eyes are locked on Kesha, and she knows he's thinking the same thing she is. 2,000 hours. That's nothing. That's a rookie. Keisha unbuckles, slowly, deliberately. She stands in the aisle, not moving forward, yet just standing. Paige Scott appears from the galley, sees her. "Ma'am, please sit down. I can help." Keisha's voice is quiet but clear. "I'm trained for this. Severe icing conditions. Oh my God." Jennifer Hartley's voice cuts like a blade. Now the game player thinks she's a pilot. This is a nightmare. Richard Blackwood moves into the aisle, blocking Kesha's path. 6'2" of corporate authority and courtroom presence. Absolutely not. This woman was playing flight simulator games 30 minutes ago. She's delusional. "Evan," he shouts toward the cockpit. "Do not let this person anywhere near those controls." David Winters stands, phone in hand. "I'm documenting this. If you interfere with this crew, that's federal air piracy. 18 USC 32. I will personally see you prosecuted to the fullest extent. Sit down." Paige Scott looks at Kesha, then at Richard, then back at the cockpit. She's 35 years old, 12 years with the airline. She's handled medical emergencies, unruly passengers, even a minor fire once. But this A passenger claiming to be able to fly, with the captain down, and a first officer who sounds like he's on the edge. FAA regulations are clear. Only certified crew in the cockpit. Only authorized personnel. "I appreciate your concern," Paige says carefully. "But regulations are very specific. First Officer Brooks is PIC pilot in command. Unless you have current ATP certification, I cannot allow." She has a game on her tablet. Jennifer's voice rises to a shriek. "She's a fraud trying to be a hero." Keisha stands in the aisle, 3 people blocking her path. 200 witnesses watching her be labeled a liar. She sits down. Her hands are shaking now, not from fear, but from the effort of staying still. Her shoulder throbs. Her breathing stays steady only through sheer will. Harold Peterson watches her, sees the way she moves, the way she thinks, the discipline. That's not a game player. That's a pilot. But nobody's listening. The cockpit door opens again. This time, it's Dr. Catherine Reed, mid-40s cardiothoracic surgeon, still wearing her conference lanyard. She's been in the galley for the past 10 minutes working on Captain Mitchell. Her face says everything. Paige Scott approaches. "Doctor, myocardial infarction, heart attack." Catherine's voice is clinical controlled. "He's stable but unconscious. I've administered aspirin, positioned him in recovery, but he absolutely cannot return to duty. Even if he wakes up in the next hour, he's grounded. Minimum." The words settle like lead weights. Richard Blackwood's face pales. "So we have one pilot, a junior pilot, flying through an ice storm." "We're not in a storm," Marcus corrects, but his voice wavers. "It's just weather, normal weather, right." The plane shudders. Ice chunks detach from the wings with audible thunks against the fuselage. Several passengers scream. Evan Brooks's voice returns over the PA, and now the fear is undeniable. Folks, we've lost pitot heat. Our airspeed indicators are becoming unreliable. I'm diverting to Chicago O'Hare. It's the nearest suitable airport, 40 minutes out. Paige Scott picks up the handset immediately. First Officer Brooks, this is Paige. What do you need from us? There's a pause. Then, just keep everyone calm. I'm flying by pitch and power. The instruments they're giving me conflicting information. But I've trained for this. It's going to be fine. He's trying to convince himself as much as them. Keisha pulls out her notepad, writing fast. Pitot heat failure. Yaw ice blocking tubes. No true airspeed. Must fly attitude plus thrust. Risk stall or overspeed. Freezing level lower than forecast 8K to 2K. Ice everywhere. Harold leans forward. What are you writing? Nothing. That's not nothing. Those are flight parameters. She closes the notepad. Says nothing. Evan's voice again. Milwaukee just closed their runway due to ice. Chicago is our only option now. Weather there is not great. Visibility 3/4 of a mile, freezing rain runway, braking action medium. Medium. That means slippery. That means long stopping distance. We have 55 minutes of fuel, Evan continues. Chicago is 40 minutes out. That gives us one approach. If we miss, if we can't land on the first try, he doesn't finish. He doesn't have to. One approach, no second chances. The math appears in Kesha's head, unbidden. Ice buildup increases stall speed by 15 to 25%. Normal stall speed 140 knots. With ice, 165, maybe a 170. But if you fly that fast and the ice sheds suddenly, you overspeed the flaps. And if you fly too slow to avoid overspeed, you stall. The margin between too fast and too slow is vanishing. She writes VREF 148 KTS normal. Plus than 20% ice. Russer 178 KTS. VFE flaps 30 180 KTS. Margin 2 KTS 2 knots. That's nothing. That's the width of a breath. The plane drops suddenly 500 feet in 3 seconds. The negative G-force lifts unsecured items into the air. A flight attendant's clipboard floats. Someone's coffee cup hovers, then crashes down. A woman screams. A man shouts for his wife. And through it all, Keisha sits motionless, hands on armrests, breathing steady. 4 in, 7 hold, 8 out. She knows exactly what's happening. She knows exactly how bad this is. She knows that in 30 minutes, when Evan Brooks tries to land a 757 on ice with no airspeed indicator and failing instruments, 207 people are going to need more than a 2,000-hour pilot. They're going to need someone who's done this before, someone who survived worse, someone who knows how to fly when everything fails. But right now, she's just the woman in the hoodie, and nobody's listening. Evan Brooks makes a decision. His voice comes through steadier this time, like he's found something to hold on to. Folks, I'm reducing speed and descending to 12,000 feet. The warmer air down there should reduce ice accumulation. We're going to punch through this layer. In 12C, Keisha's eyes widen slightly. That's the right call. Exactly right. Descend below the freezing level, get into warmer air, let the ice melt off naturally. It's textbook. It's what she would have done. The descent begins. The nose angles down 5 degrees. The engines reduce to 70% N1. Through the window, Keisha watches the altimeter numbers on her pilot watch. 24,000, 22,000, 20,000, 18,000 feet. The temperature gauge on her watch climbs from 18 degrees to 12 degrees, still below freezing, but warmer. The ice on the wing leading edge begins to change. The white rime becomes wetter, heavier. Chunks start breaking off not from the de-ice boots now, but from natural thermal shedding. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The sound of ice hitting the fuselage. Several passengers clap. Relief floods the cabin. He's doing it. We're going to be okay. The ice is coming off. Richard Blackwood exhales loudly. See, I told you. Professional pilots handle these situations. No need for random passengers playing hero. Jennifer lowers her phone, laughing nervously. Oh my God, I thought we were actually going to die. Crisis averted. Marcus Chen nods, adjusting his glasses. Modern aviation, problem-solving protocols. Everything's fine. The plane flies smooth for 5 minutes. The ice continues shedding. Visibility improves slightly. The turbulence eases. Kesha doesn't relax. She's watching the wing. The ice is coming off, yes, but not fast enough. The de-ice boots are still cycling slowly 12 seconds on 20 off. That's not normal. That means the pneumatic system is struggling. That means Evan is manually conserving pressure for something, for landing, when he'll need every bit of system capacity. Harold Peterson unbuckles and moves to 12B, sliding into the empty seat beside her. His voice is low. Ma'am, I need to ask you something, and I need complete honesty. Keisha doesn't look at him. I'm nobody, just a passenger. That's not true. He taps her notepad. I flew C-130s for 30 years. Hercules, Birds, Gulf War, Arctic supply runs. I know how pilots think. The way you watch those de-ice boots, you're tracking the cycle timing. The way you wrote down those parameters, that's crew resource management notation. And the way you breathe, he demonstrates. 4 counts in, 7 hold, 8 out. That's USAF breathing discipline for high G maneuvers, for staying conscious when the world goes gray. Keisha's jaw tightens. You're mistaken. Your watch, he points. That's a Breitling Navi timer with UTC bezel. Costs $3,000. Why would someone in a worn hoodie and discount jeans have a $3,000 pilot's watch? She doesn't answer. Who are you? Before she can respond, the autopilot disconnect warning chimes. 3 loud, insistent beeps. Then Evan's voice strained. Paige, I need you back here. I've lost the attitude indicator. Backup is working, but this is beyond my experience level. The relief in the cabin evaporates. The ice is still there. The systems are still failing, and the rookie pilot just admitted he's in over his head. Harold looks at Kesha. You need to help him. They won't let me. Then make them. The failures cascade. First, a low grinding vibration. Then the N1 gauge for engine 2 drops from 72% to 50, to 30, to 0. Engine flameout. The right engine has ingested too much ice. The compressor blades can't maintain airflow. The turbine stops. The cabin tilts left as asymmetric thrust yaws the aircraft. Evan corrects but overcorrects the plane banks, right then levels roughly. Ladies and gentlemen, Evan's voice cracks completely now. We've lost engine 2, attempting restart. The starter engages. The N2 spool spins up. Nothing. The engine stays dead. Second failure, the primary attitude indicator tumbles. The artificial horizon on Evan's main display spins uselessly. The gyro has failed ice in the ventilation system, freezing the mechanism. Third failure, the standby pitot static system freezes completely. No airspeed. No altitude except GPS derived. No vertical speed. Evan Brooks is flying a 200,000-pound aircraft on one engine with partial instruments through freezing rain with 40 minutes of fuel and no second chances. His voice comes over the PA, and this time there's no hiding it. I need to be honest with everyone. I've never flown in conditions this severe. We've lost engine 2, restart unsuccessful. Multiple instruments have failed. I'm flying partial panel, which I've trained for, but never in actual IMC, instrument meteorological conditions, in the clouds. He pauses, his breath audible over the intercom. I'm doing everything I can, but is there anyone on board, military, civilian, I don't care, anyone who's flown in ice like this? I need help. The cabin is silent, dead silent. Dr. Catherine Reed shouts from the galley. Captain Mitchell cannot help. He's intubated, critical condition. Richard Blackwood's face is white. This is it. We're all going to die because of incompetent. Keisha stands. The dog tag chain catches light as her hoodie shifts. Frost, C-130J, visible for just a moment. Harold sees it, grabs her arm. That's you. You're Frost. I was. Then help him. She moves toward the aisle. Richard Blackwood steps in front of her, 6'2" of pure panic disguised as authority. Absolutely not. This woman was playing games. She's a fraud. Evan, if she comes near that cockpit, I will physically restrain her. David Winters holds up his phone. I'm recording this. Air piracy. Federal crime. Your family will be sued into oblivion if you touch those controls, and we crash. Paige Scott stands between them, torn. Miss I regulations say the plane banks hard right. Ice shedding asymmetrically from the wings. 800 feet of altitude lost in 5 seconds. The negative G throws passengers against their seatbelts. Overhead bins pop open. Luggage tumbles out. Someone's laptop shatters in the aisle. Oxygen masks deploy in rows 18 through 22, a malfunction triggered by the violent movement. Screaming, praying, a child wailing for his mother. The plane shakes so hard that Keisha has to brace against the seats. Her eyes close. She's calculating wind. Shear vectors, ice accretion rates, single-engine performance at this weight and altitude. Every number says they're going to die, unless someone who knows what they're doing takes control. She opens her eyes, looks at Richard Blackwood blocking her path, at David Winters threatening lawsuits, at Paige Scott paralyzed by regulations, at 207 people who are about to die because she's wearing the wrong clothes. Her voice cuts through the screaming, loud. Command presence that's been dormant for 4 months. First Officer Brooks Keisha Washington, Captain United States Air Force C-130, Hercules, call sign Frost. I specialized in Arctic operations. Ice worse than this. Let me help or we all die. Your choice. The cabin freezes. Evan Brooks's response is immediate. No hesitation. No questioning credentials. Just the raw survival instinct of a pilot who knows he's drowning. Get up here, now. Paige Scott steps aside. Her training says no. Her instincts say yes. In this moment, instincts win. Richard Blackwood tries to physically block the aisle. Harold Peterson, 6'2", 200 pounds of retired military muscle, places one hand on Richard's chest and moves him aside like furniture. Son, move or I move you. Richard stumbles into his seat, face crimson with impotent rage. Keisha walks forward. Her left shoulder is already throbbing from the turbulence from bracing against the violent movements. She has maybe 30 minutes before the pain becomes unmanageable. 30 minutes to save 207 lives. The cockpit is chaos under control. Warning lights paint everything red and amber. The master caution light flashing. The autopilot disconnect horn silenced but not resolved. Evan Brooks's hands white-knuckle on the yoke sweat beating his forehead despite the cool air. Keisha takes 3 seconds. Just 3. Her eyes scan the panel with the speed of someone who's done this 10,000 times. Engine 2, 0N1, 0N2. Dead. Pitot static, unreliable, frozen. Primary attitude indicator tumbled useless. Backup artificial horizon working. GPS functional. VHF radio 1 good. She slides into the jump seat. Evan, you're doing great. Maintain pitch 5 degrees up power 75% on engine 1. Don't chase the instruments fly by attitude and sound. Her voice is clinical, calm. The voice of someone who's talked pilots through worse. Evan's hands relax a fraction. I can't. The instruments are... Ignore them. You have backup AI. You have power. You have control. That's enough. Now give me the radio. He gestures to the VHF panel. Keisha keys the mic. Professional, precise. Chicago approach, November 7-3. Whiskey declaring Mayday. Mayday, Mayday. Dual system failure, single engine, partial panel. Request immediate priority handling, weather minimums, full emergency equipment. The controller's voice comes back instantly, a woman's voice steady but urgent. November 7-3, Whiskey Chicago approach. Roger your mayday. Say souls on board and fuel remaining. 207 souls, 40 minutes fuel. Require vectors, ILS runway, 10 request Air Force liaison coordination. Kesha pauses, then adds, Chicago approach, this is military call sign Frost. Authenticate Tango Charlie 7903. Silence. Complete silence. That's a classified authentication code, one that shouldn't exist outside military channels, one that grants immediate tactical authority in civilian airspace during national emergencies. Commander Lisa Rodriguez, sitting in the Chicago Tower, pulls up her authentication database. Her fingers fly over the keyboard. She's handled thousands of emergencies in 20 years, but she's never heard a civilian aircraft use a military auth code. The database returns results Frost. CPT Kesha Washington. 39th E Airlift Squadron. C-130J Operations. Arctic, Antarctic qualified. Status medical discharge 2024. Authentication valid. Lisa keys her mic. November 7-3 Whiskey authentication confirmed. Call sign Frost verified. Standby for priority coordination. In the cockpit, Evan stares at Kesha like she just pulled a rabbit from a hat. You're real. You're actually military. Was, Kesha corrects. But the training doesn't leave. Now focus. We need to configure for single engine approach. What's your fuel state? Evan checks. 38 minutes. Chicago's 30 minutes out. That gives us one approach 8-minute reserve. If we miss, we glide to a cornfield. So we don't miss. Her voice doesn't allow for doubt. Doesn't allow for failure. Evan nods, his breathing steadying. For the first time since this nightmare began, he's not alone. The plane shudders. Ice still building. Engine 1 running at maximum continuous thrust. But they're descending through 12,000 feet now, the outside air temperature climbing towards zero. Ice begins shedding naturally, heavy wet chunks breaking free. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The sound of life returning to the wings. In the cabin, Harold Peterson has taken Paige Scott's microphone. Chicago Tower. This is Master Sergeant Harold Peterson, retired 39th Airlift Squadron. I can confirm Captain Washington's credentials. She trained me on Arctic ice survival 22 years ago. If anyone can bring this bird down, it's Frost. Richard Blackwood sits in his seat, face buried in his hands, finally understanding that he nearly killed everyone because of his pride. Jennifer Hartley has deleted her Instagram posts. Too late. They're already screenshot, already viral, already destroying her reputation. And Kesha Washington, wearing a coffee-stained hoodie and worn jeans, is doing what she's always done. Saving lives while everyone else just watches. Chicago Tower comes back, and this time there's a different quality to Commander Rodriguez's voice. Respect. November 7-3. Whiskey call sign Frost confirmed on file. C-130 qualified Arctic Operations Specialist. Your authentication cleared command level. Stand by for Air Force coordination. Evan's hands pause on the yoke. He looks at Kesha fully for the first time. Not as a desperate measure, not as a last resort, but as what she actually is, a pilot, a real one. You're not just qualified, he says slowly. Who are you exactly? Right now, I'm the person keeping you alive. Later we can do introductions. But her hoodie has slipped back, and the dog tag chain is fully visible now. Evan's eyes catch it. The tag spins slowly in the cockpit's LED light. CPTK. Washington, Frost, 39th as, USAF. Captain, Evan's voice cracks. You outrank every commercial pilot on this airline. Ranked, Past tense. Medical discharge 4 months ago. Kesha rolls her left shoulder unconsciously, the pain flaring. Doesn't matter now. What matters is getting these people on the ground. What's Engine 2 status? Evan checks. N10, N20 EGT cooling. It's completely flamed out. Restart attempts unsuccessful. Don't try again. Ice ingestion risk is too high. We fly single engine except the performance penalty. She looks at the fuel gauge. Chicago's 32 minutes out now. We're cutting it close. Through the open cockpit door, the cabin is silent. Every passenger listening. Harold Peterson's voice comes through Page's microphone again, and his tone carries the weight of 3 decades in uniform. Chicago Tower Frost was my instructor, and so wrote too. Operation Deep Freeze McMurdo Station Resupply. She flew C-130s through conditions that grounded everyone else. 47 sorties November through February, 0 write-ups. You want credentials. There's your credentials. Commander Rodriguez types, quickly pulling up records. Harold Peterson's service file validates everything. 39th as 1989, 2003. C-130, flight engineer, Antarctic veteran. She keys the radio. November 7-3, whiskey patching Air Force coordination. Colonel Richardson en route on guard frequency. Copy, Keisha responds. Then to Evan. When Colonel Richardson comes on, he's going to ask verification questions. Don't answer. I will. But you stay pilot in command on paper. FAA regulations require it. I'm just advising. Understood? Evan nods. Advising? Right. His hands are steadier now. The panic is bleeding away, replaced by focus. What do we do about the ice? We're at 11,000. Temperatures -2. Close enough to melting. The boots are cycling slow but working. We let physics do the work. She points to the wing. See how the ice is becoming translucent? That's good. That means it's wet, heavy, ready to shed. A loud crack. A chunk of ice the size of a dinner plate breaks free and tumbles past the window. Like that, Keisha says calmly. The radio crackles. November 7-3. Whiskey. This is Yukon Actual on guard. Frost authenticate identity. What was your last mission designation? Kesha keys the mic without hesitation. Operation Deep Freeze 2022. McMurdo Station resupply November through February. 47 sorties. Cargo fuel food scientific equipment. Conditions wind chill, -80. Visibility 1/4 mile, 24-hour darkness. 0 write-ups. 0 incidents. A pause. Then, confirmed. Frost. This is Colonel Dan Richardson, Reserve Command. You have full tactical authority. Chicago Tower will comply with all requests. What do you need? Weather updates every 5 minutes. Freezing level, precipitation, intensity, O'Hare visibility. Pre-position, crash rescue at runway 10. We're coming in heavy fast single engine. It's going to be a carrier landing. Copy all. Frost, you're authorized. Bring them home. In the cabin, Richard Blackwood is listening. His face has gone from red to white to gray. He stands, slowly approaches the cockpit door. Page Scott blocks him, but he holds up both hands. I need to say... Keisha glances back. Their eyes meet. I'm sorry, Richard whispers. I was wrong about everything. Keisha doesn't respond, turns back to the instruments, whispers to Evan. He's not the problem anymore. Chicago weather is. Page Scott leans close to Dr. Catherine Reed in the galley, her voice low. She says she's qualified, but medical discharge. That shoulder, I saw her wince. Can she physically handle this if Evan fails? Catherine watches Keisha through the open door. I don't know, but I know we don't have anyone else. The radio frequency shifts. Guard 121.5, the emergency channel every aircraft monitors. Colonel Dan Richardson's voice cuts through with military precision. Frost Yukon Actual. Final verification required. What were your primary aircraft systems for Antarctic operations? Keisha doesn't miss a beat. C-130J-30 Hercules, 4 Allison AE-2100D3 turboprops, 6-blade composite props, enhanced cargo handling, ski-equipped for ice runway operations. Primary mission resupply, McMurdo South Pole Station. Secondary personnel evacuation under extreme weather conditions. Weather minimums. RVR 600 feet, visibility 1/4 mile wind, chill -80 operational limit. Flew below minimums twice under emergency waiver medevac situations. Evan's eyes widen. RVR 600 is barely enough to see the runway at touchdown. This woman flew cargo planes in conditions that would ground fighter jets. Confirmed? Richardson's voice carries new weight. Frost, you have unrestricted authority. Chicago Tower, this frequency is now priority. All requests from Frost are approved pre-authorization. No bureaucratic delays. She owns the sky. Commander Lisa Rodriguez in Chicago Tower types rapidly updating the air traffic management system. Frost. Tactical authority granted. Priority 1. Every controller in the Great Lakes region sees the flag. Every aircraft within 100 miles gets rerouted. Airspace clears around November. 7-3. Whiskey like water around a stone. Frost updated weather, Rodriguez says. Freezing rain, moderate visibility, 3/4 mile. RVR, 4,000 winds, 090 at 18, gusting 28. Runway 10 ice covered, but treated braking action medium to poor. Your approach will be challenging. Keisha's fingers fly across her mental calculator. Single engine landing distance 6,000 feet baseline. Ice on runway plus 20%. Crosswind component at 18 knots plus 15%. Total required 8,280 feet. Runway 10 length 10,000 feet. Margin 1,720 feet. If she floats. If the ice is worse than medium. If wind gusts on short final. The margin disappears. Acceptable, she tells Rodriguez. Request crash equipment positioned midfield, not at the threshold. If we go long, I need foam at the far end. Copy. Crash rescue positioning now. Evan watches her think. Watches the way her eyes track invisible calculations. How did you did all that math in your head. 4 years instructing pilots like you. Calculating margins is muscle memory. She points at the fuel gauge. What's our current state? 35 minutes. Chicago's 28 out. 7-minute reserve. She keys the radio. Chicago Frost. 35 minutes fuel. Request priority vectors. No holding straight in approach. Frost Roger. You're number 1. We're clearing the entire sequence. Direct Kelsey intersection. Then vectors ILS 10. Paige Scott picks up the cabin, PA, her voice steadier now. Ladies and gentlemen, we have United States Air Force coordination supporting our landing. Captain Washington is a specialist in these exact conditions. Arctic operations, severe icing. She's guiding First Officer Brooks through every step. Emergency equipment is staged. We will land safely. The words ripple through the cabin. Captain Washington, not the woman in 12C, not the game player. Captain. Richard Blackwood stands slowly in first class. His voice carries humbled. If Captain Washington can hear me, I was wrong, completely wrong. I judged you by your appearance, your clothes, I'm profoundly sorry. Jennifer Hartley adds quietly. We all were. I posted things I shouldn't have. I'm deleting everything, for what it's worth. Marcus Chen just nods, unable to speak. The shame is written across his face. Harold Peterson's voice comes through the cabin speaker, gentle but firm. Folks, Captain Washington doesn't need your apologies right now. She needs your silence. Let her work. The cabin falls quiet. 207 people holding their breath. In the cockpit, Keisha adjusts her headset. Evan, when we start the approach, I'll call every correction. You fly. I'm the brain, you're the hands. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am. Call me Frost. Pilots use call signs under pressure. Keeps it professional, keeps emotion out. Yes, Frost. Good. Now let's bring these people home. The radio crackles with a new voice. Official. Bureaucratic. Cold. November 7-3. Whiskey. This is FAA Command Center. We have legal on frequency regarding your current cockpit configuration. Keisha's jaw tightens. She knows this tone. She's heard it before. Captain Washington, the voice continues, we show your medical certificate status as revoked due to Class 1 physical failure. Under 14 CFR 61.53, you are prohibited from acting as pilot in command or required crew member. Please confirm you are advising only not assuming command. Evan's face drains of color. They're going to stop us. Now. From the cabin, David Winter's voice rises triumphant despite the fear. He's on his phone, connected to someone. That's right. I have aviation counsel on the line. Captain Washington is medically disqualified. If she assumes command and this aircraft crashes, the airline ATC and the Air Force coordination are all liable for wrongful death. I'm documenting everything. Colonel Richardson cuts in voice hard. FAA command. This is military liaison. We have 207 lives at risk. Your legal review can wait until after landing. Negative, Colonel. Federal aviation regulations are non-negotiable. We need confirmation from the aircraft. Kesha closes her eyes, breathes. 4 in, 7 hold, 8 out. When she opens them, her voice is clinical. FAA command. Their First Officer Evan Brooks is pilot in command. I am providing advisory support only. He retains all command authority. Technically true, legally sound, completely meaningless in practice. Confirmed, the FAA voice says. First Officer Brooks, you are PIC. Captain Washington may advise but not manipulate controls. Evan's hands start shaking. The yoke trembles under his grip. I can't. Frost? I've never landed single engine in ice. I've never even practiced this in the simulator. My hands are look at them. He holds up both hands. They're trembling visibly, uncontrollably. Then you follow my instructions exactly, Kesha says. I call every move. You execute. Legally, your picks. Practically, we're a crew. Can you do that? Evan's voice cracks. Yes, I can do that. Paige Scott's voice from the cabin, urgent. Captain Washington, I can see you on the camera feed. Your shoulder, you keep rolling it, Dr. Reed noticed. Can you physically handle the yoke if needed? Dr. Catherine Reed leans into frame, her surgeon's eyes seeing what others miss. That's a rotator cuff injury. Grade 3, maybe 4. How long since surgery? Kesha doesn't turn around. No surgery? Medical discharge before they could operate. 4 months recovery, mostly healed, but load-bearing capacity is limited. How limited? 30 seconds maximum pull force before muscle failure. After that, I'm done. The words land like stones. 30 seconds. That's one approach correction, one wind shear recovery, one emergency go-around, one chance. So if Evan fails, Catherine says slowly, you can't save us. So Evan doesn't fail. Kesha looks at the first officer. You hear that? You get one approach. I get 30 seconds of backup. That's our margin. We make it count. Evan nods, swallowing hard. Understood. Chicago Tower. Frost updated. 15 minutes to final approach fix. Descend and maintain 6,000. Turn left heading 085 vectors, ILS runway 10. Left 085 down to 6,000. Kesha watches the fuel. 33 minutes remaining. 15 to landing. 18-minute reserve, more than legal, but only if everything goes perfectly. And nothing has gone perfectly today. The plane descends. The temperature climbs. 2 degrees Celsius, above freezing. Ice begins melting naturally, streaming off the wings in rivulets, but the de-ice boots are still cycling slowly, the hydraulic system struggling. Engine 1 running at 98%, nearly redline, compensating for the dead engine 2. Richard Blackwood stands at the cockpit door. Captain Washington. I need to see. I need to know we're going to make it. Harold Peterson pulls him back. Son, sit down. Let her concentrate. But now, Richard sits. The entire cabin watches the cockpit camera feed on their seatback screens. Watches Kesha and Evan working together. Watches the woman they mocked become their only hope. The clock ticks. 15 minutes to landing. 30 seconds of physical capacity. One approach. No second chances. Evan, we're doing this my way now. Keisha's voice shifts. Command authority. No requests. Just orders. Descend to 6,000 feet. Below the freezing level. We shed ice, naturally reduce weight, improve performance. 6,000 puts us in freezing rain, which is warmer than where we are. Ice will melt. Trust me. Evan pushes the yoke forward. The nose drops 3 degrees. Engine 1 throttles back to 80%. The altimeter unwinds. 10,000, 9,000, 8,000. Outside air temperature climbs on Kesha's watch. 5 degrees C, 2 degrees C, 0 degrees C, plus 2 degrees C. Above freezing. Liquid water, not ice. The wings begin weeping. Rivulets of water streaming back from the leading edges. The ice doesn't just melt it. Sheds in sheets, heavy chunks tumbling away. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of salvation. Good, Kesha says. Now the boots. Evan switched de-ice to manual override. That's not in the civilian manual. I know. It's C-130 field procedure. Military cargo planes can't afford slow cycles in Arctic conditions. Manual override lets you pulse the boots faster, 5 seconds on 15 off. Computer thinks it's protecting the system. We need performance. Evan's hand hovers over the switch. If I burn out the pneumatic system, then we land without boots. But if we don't shed this ice, we don't land at all. Do it. He flips the switch. Manual. Keisha's hand moves to the boot control. Watch. 5 seconds. She holds the button. The rubber bladders inflate, violently cracking ice free. Release. 15 seconds. Again. Faster. Aggressive. The ice can't keep up. It builds, shatters, falls away in a rhythm the automatic system could never match. The wing leading edges become visible. Clean metal, aerodynamic, efficient. The stall warning horn that's been whispering in the background goes silent. Airspeed's coming back, Evan reports. We're showing 160 now. Instruments they're starting to agree with each other. The pitot tubes are thawing. The static ports clearing. Real data returning. Don't trust them yet, Keisha warns. Cross-check everything, but yes, we're getting our plane back. Chicago Tower. Frost, we're showing your descent rate decreasing. Altitude 6,000. How's your situation? Improved. Ice shedding systems recovering. Attempting engine 2 restart. Copy. Crash equipment advised. Kesha looks at Evan. Engine 2 restart checklist. Call it. In icing conditions. We're below freezing level. The risk is minimal now. We need that engine. If approach goes wrong, we need go-round power. Call the checklist. Evan's hands fly across the overhead panel. Engine 2 start system. Armed. Ignition. Select. Starter. Engage. The N2 gauge climbs. 20%. 30%. The turbine spinning. Come on. 40%. Fuel flow indicator jumps. Ignition. The EGT climbs 400 degrees Celsius, 600 degrees Celsius. Stabilizing at 650 DC. N1 starts moving. 10%, 20, 40. The engine catches. The roar returns. Power. 60% N1, 70. Stabilizes at idle 72%. The cabin erupts in applause. People crying, praying, cheering. But Kesha's face doesn't change. 72%. Not full power, but it's enough. Evan bring thrust symmetrical 80% both engines. Both throttles forward. The asymmetric yaw disappears. The plane flies, straight, smooth, powerful. Chicago, November 7-3. Whiskey engine 2 relight successful. We're 2 engine normal. Request vectors ILS 10. Roger Frost. Welcome back. Turn right. Heading 110 descend and maintain 4000. Intercept localizer runway 10. Cleared ILS approach. Richard Blackwood tries one more time to approach the cockpit. I just need to. Harold Peterson stands blocking him. Physically, 6'2" of muscle memory that doesn't fade with age. Sir, if you take one more step toward that cockpit, I will restrain you. She's flying. You're watching. That's your role now. Richard stumbles back to his seat. Jennifer Hartley whispers to Marcus Chen. We mocked her for 30 minutes. She's been saving us for 30 more. How do you even apologize for that? You don't, Marcus says quietly. You just remember, and you never do it again. In the cockpit, Kesha's hands move across the panel. Not touching controls, she's advising legally, but her fingers trace paths showing Evan where to reach, what to adjust. Flaps 5, she says. Gear down, speed back to 180. We're configuring for landing. Evan's hands follow her guidance. The plane slows, descends, configures. Landing gear extends. 3 green lights. Locked. Flaps deploy. 5 degrees. 10. 15. The runway is 12 miles ahead, hidden in freezing rain, invisible behind clouds. But Keisha can see it in her mind. She's done this 1,000 times. In worse weather, in heavier aircraft, in conditions that would make today look easy. She's Captain Kesha Washington, call sign Frost, and she's bringing 207 people home. Whether they deserve it or not, the cockpit camera feed broadcasts to every seatback screen in the cabin. 200 passengers watching in real time as Kesha guides Evan through the approach, and they can see everything now. The dog tags hanging outside her hoodie, spinning slowly in the LED light. CPT-K Washington, Frost, 39th as, USAF, clear, undeniable, real. Harold Peterson holds up his phone to the camera showing a photo he pulled from military archives. Kesha in full flight gear standing in front of a C-130 Hercules. The aircraft behind her painted in Antarctic white skis attached to the landing gear. The photo caption Operation Deep Freeze 2022, McMurdo Station Resupply. Captain K. Washington Mission Commander. Paige Scott finds Keisha's military ID in the dropped duffel bag, accidentally visible when it fell during turbulence. She holds it up to the cabin camera. The ID is unmistakable. Department of Defense SEAL photo of Keisha in uniform rank insignia clear. Class 1 Medical. Valid through June 2024. Designation Arctic Pilot Instructor. The cabin erupts, not with panic this time, with understanding. Oh my God, someone whispers. She's real. We almost didn't let her help. Commander Lisa Rodriguez in Chicago Tower watches her radar screen, but her other monitor shows live news feeds. CNN has picked up the story. Fox, MSNBC, social media exploding. There's Frost, the hero, is trending nationally within minutes. Rodriguez keys her mic voice, carrying new authority. All aircraft on this frequency, November 7-3 Whiskey, is under military tactical coordination. Call sign Frost has unrestricted authority. No questions, no delays. This aircraft gets priority over Air Force One if needed. The weight of those words. Air Force One, the President's plane. Colonel Richardson adds, Chicago Center, Yukon Actual. Media outlets are identifying Captain Keisha Washington, decorated C-130 pilot, Antarctic Operations Specialist. National attention is focused. Repeat, no bureaucratic interference. Frost owns the sky. Richard Blackwood stands in first class, his phone showing Twitter. His hands shake as he reads the comments. This is the woman they mocked, the one in the hoodie, CEO Richard Blackwood publicly humiliated a war hero 30 minutes before she saved his life. She was playing flight simulator games. Yeah, training scenarios from actual military operations. His face crumbles. He picks up the cabin PA handset, voice breaking. Captain Washington, everyone on this plane, I need to say something. Keisha doesn't look back. She's calling altitudes to Evan. 2,000 feet, on glide slope. Speed 165, perfect. Richard continues anyway. I judged a person by her clothes, by her appearance, by my assumption that someone in worn jeans couldn't possibly have value. His voice cracks. I was monstrously wrong, and I'm sorry. To Captain Washington, to everyone who heard what I said, I'm profoundly sorry. Jennifer Hartley stands, tears streaming. I posted videos mocking you. I called you. I'm deleting everything. But it's too late. Screenshots are everywhere. My career is over and I deserve it. You were saving our lives while I was destroying your dignity. Marcus Chen can't speak. Just sits with his head in his hands, the weight of his own cruelty crushing him. David Winters, the lawyer, stares at his phone. The legal threats he made, the air piracy accusations, all recorded, all public now. His firm's reputation destroyed in real time. In the cockpit, Evan calls 1,000 feet, runway in sight, we're going to make it. Keisha's voice stays clinical. Not yet. Don't celebrate until wheels stop. Call 500 feet. 500, on center line. Flaps 30, full landing configuration. Flaps 30 set. The runway appears through the freezing rain. A concrete ribbon stretching into gray infinity. Foam trucks lined up along the sides. Ambulances, fire equipment, every emergency vehicle Chicago owns, waiting for them. Waiting to see if the woman in the hoodie can finish what she started. 100 feet, Evan calls, voice steady now, confident. 50, 40, 30. Pull, Kesha says quietly. Gently. Let it settle. Evan pulls back. The nose rises. The main gear kisses the runway. Contact. They're down. The yoke jolts in Evan's hands as the wheels hit harder than expected, the runway ice making contact rough. Keisha's instinct is to grab the controls, to correct, to help. She reaches. Her left hand moves to the yoke. Pain explodes through her shoulder, white hot, blinding. The rotator cuff screaming where torn muscle meets bone. She gasps, pulls back, and the flashback hits. 4 months ago, Alaska, night. The C-130 bucking through Arctic turbulence 70-knot winds at 200 feet, delivering emergency medical supplies to a research station. The co-pilot, Lieutenant Morrison Young, qualified but inexperienced, freezing at the controls when clear air turbulence slams them into a 20-degree bank. Keisha's hands already moving, taking the yoke, pulling. 90 pounds of force against the flight controls, wrestling a 100-ton aircraft back to level flight. The mountain ridge rising ahead. Terrain warning, pull up, pull up. She pulls harder. The yoke fights back. Hydraulic pressure, battling muscle. Something tears in her left shoulder. Deep, catastrophic. The pain nearly blacks her out, but she doesn't let go. 500 feet, 400, 300. The ridge passes beneath them close enough to see individual trees in the landing lights. They clear it. Barely. Morrison breathing again. I'm sorry, Captain. I froze. I'm sorry. Just fly, Kesha manages through gritted teeth. Her left arm useless now. Right hand only guiding them to landing. Post-flight medical. The diagnosis. Grade 3 rotator cuff tear. Possibly grade 4. You need immediate surgery, Captain. 12-month recovery minimum. We're grounding you pending medical review. Her choice: lie about the pain, hide the injury, keep flying, risk killing a crew if the shoulder fails at the wrong moment. Or accept the truth, accept discharge, walk away from the only life she's known. I accept medical separation, she'd told them. I won't risk lives to keep a job. The flashback ends. Kesha's in the cockpit again. The runway blurring past. Evan applying brakes. The plane slowing. Her shoulder still screaming. But they're down. They're safe. She made the same choice then that she made today, put lives before pride, before career, before ego. That's why she can live with the pain. That's why she'd do it all again. Evan calls 60 knots, 40, 20. The reversers roar, brakes applied, maximum pressure. The plane slows, stops. 1,200 feet from the runway end, margin enough, safe. The cabin explodes. Applause like thunder, crying, praying, strangers hugging strangers. Harold Peterson stands in 14A and salutes crisp military perfect. Paige Scott's voice over PA breaking, "Ladies and gentlemen, we are safely on the ground at Chicago O'Hare, thanks to the exceptional skill of Captain Kesha Washington and First Officer Evan Brooks. Please remain seated until we reach the gate." But nobody stays seated. They stand. They clap. They cheer. Keisha unbuckles slowly, her shoulder throbbing. She doesn't smile, doesn't wave, just nods once. "Good job, Evan," she says quietly. "I didn't do anything. That was all you. You followed instructions perfectly. You trusted someone you didn't know. That takes courage." She stands, steadies herself against the pain. "Now let's get these people home." The jetway extends. Passengers deplane slowly, many stopping to thank Kesha. Some crying, some just touching her shoulder, unable to find words. Richard Blackwood waits until last. He approaches, hand extended. "Captain Washington, I need to..." Keisha looks at his hand, doesn't take it. "Mr. Blackwood, I don't need your apology. Your employees heard everything you said today. How you lead, how you judge, how you treat people you think are beneath you. That's your problem to solve, not mine." She walks past him, leaves him standing alone. 3 days later, news breaks Jennifer Hartley and Marcus Chen both resign from Blackwood's company, citing fundamental incompatibility with leadership values. The $800 million merger collapses. The acquiring company pulls out after viral video shows catastrophic judgment failure by executive leadership. Richard Blackwood's career implodes publicly, exactly as it should. The National Transportation Safety Board interviews Keisha for 6 hours, not as a suspect, as an expert witness. "Captain Washington, your techniques manual, de-ice boot cycling, descending below freezing level, the single-engine approach profile, none of that is in civilian training curricula. Where did you learn it? Military Arctic operations, conditions where standard procedures don't apply. You adapt or you die. Would you be willing to help us develop new training protocols?" She considers. "Yes, if it helps civilian pilots survive what they're not trained for." 2 weeks later, FAA announces formation of advisory panel to integrate military cold weather survival techniques into Part 121 airline training. Panel chair, Captain Keisha Washington Rhett. The phone call comes from Colonel Stevens, 176th Wing Commander. "Captain Washington, we'd like to offer you a consultant position. Part-time, no medical clearance required for instruction. Teach civilian pilots your techniques. We'll call it the Frost Protocol." Kesha accepts, not for the money, because teaching keeps her in the sky without risking lives with her injured shoulder. CNN runs a special Hero Pilot mocked for her appearance saves 207 lives. The segment includes interviews with passengers' footage of Richard's public humiliation of Keisha, then video of her guiding the landing. Social media explodes with discussions about classism, judging competence by appearance the invisible hero society dismisses. Frost Protocol trends for 2 weeks. Congress introduces legislation. Commercial Aviation, Cold Weather Operations Act. Requirements include cross-training with military Arctic specialists, updated icing survival protocols, mandatory unconscious bias training for flight crews. The bill passes unanimously, nicknamed Frost's Law. Dr. Catherine Reed treats Captain Mitchell post-landing. He's stable, transferred to cardiac ICU. Full recovery expected. He'll be flying again in 6 months. Kesha visits him once. You would have done the same for me. Mitchell smiles weakly. No, Captain. I couldn't have. I didn't have your training. Thank you for being on my plane. 2 weeks later. Flight Safety International Training Facility, Denver, Colorado. Keisha stands at a podium facing 40 civilian pilots, first class of the Frost Protocol. Evan Brooks sits front row taking notes. She's wearing the same hoodie, same jeans, deliberately. Lesson 1, she begins. ICE doesn't care about your uniform. It doesn't care about your rank, your ego, your assumptions. It only cares if you know what you're doing. On the whiteboard behind her, Frost Protocol, severe icing survival. She teaches for 3 hours, manual de-ice techniques, descent profiles, single engine performance in degraded conditions. The pilots absorb every word like oxygen. During break, Harold Peterson appears in the doorway, brings 5 other veterans, all former military pilots, all struggling to find purpose after discharge. Captain, Harold says, these are people who need what you're teaching, not just the technical skills, the reminder that their training still matters, that they still matter. Keisha looks at them, sees herself 4 months ago. You're all welcome, no charge. We take care of our own. That evening, news breaks Richard Blackwood's company files for bankruptcy protection. The merger collapse triggered investor lawsuits, board resignations, criminal investigations into financial irregularities discovered during due diligence. Everything unravels because he spent 30 minutes mocking a woman instead of recognizing competence. Jennifer Hartley publishes an essay in The Atlantic, I Was the Woman Who Mocked a Hero. Here's what I learned about prejudice, power, and privilege. It goes viral. She donates all proceeds to scholarships for underprivileged students pursuing aviation careers. Marcus Chen quietly leaves tech. Last anyone hears, he's teaching high school math in rural Montana, trying to matter in smaller, better ways. 6 months later, the teaching continues. Keisha's classroom has expanded. 60 pilots now. Military veterans, young civilians, people who were told they didn't belong. On the last day of class, a young black girl, maybe 16, raises her hand from the back row. She's wearing a hoodie that says Future Pilot. Captain Washington, when you were my age, did people believe in you? Keisha pauses. Thinks about every person who underestimated her, every time someone looked at her and saw limitations instead of potential. No, she says honestly. They didn't. But I believed in me, and that's all you need. Belief, training, discipline. The rest is just noise. The girl smiles, writes that down, underlines it twice. Final scene. The classroom empties. Keisha packs her laptop, the same one Richard mocked. Next to it, her military flight log, water-stained and worn. Dog tags. A photo of her C-130 in Antarctica, white against white, barely visible, except for the courage it represents. She picks up the tags, puts them on, feels the familiar weight. Outside, the sun is setting over the Rockies. A 737 climbs out from Denver International, leaving contrails in the golden light. Keisha watches it, thinks about the pilots up there, the passengers who don't know their names, the invisible competence that keeps them alive. She thinks about second chances, about redemption that comes not from forgiveness, but from doing the work anyway, about flying without flying, about being Frost even when nobody knows the name. She walks out into the evening air, The dog tags catch the light one last time. Someone honks. Harold Peterson waiting in the parking lot waving. Come on, Captain. Veterans Group is waiting. You promised to tell them the McMurdo story. She smiles, gets in the car, flies on.